This is Top 30. Coming up, some good news for renters. A Victoria's Secret model is suing a hotel after she claims bed bugs damaged her career. And a new beginning for John Legend.
Welcome to the show. I'm Richard Bacon.
And I'm Kristen Smith. Here are 30 things you need to know. The 4th of July is coming up, and that means kids and adults will be lighting fireworks. The Consumer Product Safety Commission released this video to remind people about the potential dangers. The video uses mannequins and a watermelon to demonstrate just how powerful fireworks are and what can happen if you don't handle them properly. Last year, almost 13,000 people were injured, and the #1 cause was sparklers. While they may seem harmless, sparklers burn at temperatures as high as 2,000 degrees. The sparks can catch onto clothing and lead to serious burns. Here are some tips to stay safe. First, make sure fireworks are legal where you're using them. Don't place your body directly over fireworks as you light them. Light one at a time and move away quickly. And after a firework is done, douse it with water before throwing it away. 4th of July fireworks are a fun tradition, of course, and it's important to make sure it's a safe one, too.
All right, let's go to the New York Stock Exchange for our Fox Business Minute with your friend and mine, Nicole Pedalides. Nicole, big news from H&M.
That's right, Richard. H&M has $4 billion worth of merchandise to get rid of, so it's going to offer steep discounts all summer. John Legend is the latest celebrity to get into the rosé business. The product is an expansion of his wine label, LVE. You can get your hands on one through the LVE website for $25. Amazon getting into the online pharmacy business. The company is buying PillPack, a Boston-based startup which sorts and delivers medication. The company is already licensed to sell prescriptions in 49 states.
And Nicole, what does this mean for consumers?
Well, it could be good news if increased competition drives down drug prices. And get this, Americans spend $450 billion annually on prescription drugs.
That is a remarkable number. Nicole, in New York, thank you.
The suspect in the Maryland newsroom shooting had a long-time battle with the paper over an article they published in 2011. He has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder, and despite losing their co-workers in the tragic shooting, staff members published a paper the very next day. Above the fold on the front page are the faces and names of the 5 victims. And following up on Serena Williams' victory for pregnant women in tennis, LPGA star Stacey Lewis will receive full pay from her sponsor, KPMG, during her maternity leave. Lewis hopes her situation will soon become the norm rather than the exception to the rule. And this photo of the Jeffrey the Giraffe mascot walking out of an empty store with his suitcase has gone viral. After 70 years in business, Toys R Us officially closed the doors on all of their U.S. stores. The end of an era. Let's go to Danielle Knox now from Fox 35 Orlando. She has what you need to know today. So Danielle, I don't know how I feel about this one. I hear there's a new study that says arguing with your spouse can be helpful.
Yeah, that's right, Kristen. Being nice to your spouse may be overrated, especially when the going gets tough. Researchers found when people are going through a rough time, they're more affected by rude behavior and less receptive to kind gestures. So experts say you shouldn't focus on being overly sweet during the hard times. Just try not to be a jerk. Well, 25 kids in America end up in the emergency room every hour because of bike injuries. This according to a new report, and that's more than 2.2 million kids a year. Researchers say the good news is the rate of injury declined over the course of the study. Researchers also say a key to preventing injury, wearing a helmet and making sure that helmet fits correctly. Well, there is a new dining trend that is growing. It's called fine casual. It's popular in San Francisco where there's a waiter shortage. Find your own table, get your own drinks. The food's typically made by chefs, though, with fine dining backgrounds. The only waiters are called runners, and that's because they run your food from the kitchen to you. And that's what you need to know. But if it's fine dining prices, Kristen, I'd want the full deal, wouldn't you?
Of course. Who wants to pay more for less service? Thanks, Danielle. Top 30 will be right back. Welcome back. A Victoria's Secret model is suing a California hotel after she claims bed bugs massacred her body, which in turn affected her modeling career. With us today is attorney and legal analyst Mari Henderson to discuss this lawsuit. Thanks for joining us, Mari.
Thank you for having me.
So do you think she has a valid case here?
I do think she has a valid case. Under California law, hotels, they have a duty to protect their guests and to not cause any unreasonable risks of harm. That includes welts all over your body.
So the GM claims that they hired an outside company to do a complete pest control sweep of the place, and they found nothing.
Well, I think the photos will come into play for the damages to really show a jury the pain and suffering that she endured. The two biggest hurdles in this case are trying to prove that the hotel knew that there were bed bugs here and they didn't do anything to properly maintain their rooms, and that they had bed bugs that caused her injuries.
You know, this has happened to countless other people. This woman it's not an isolated incident, but she is a model. So does the fact that she's a model, is that what makes this super credible, or could anybody just sue for getting bed bug bites?
Well, any hotel guest absolutely can sue. It's not just because she's a model. She's obviously making a claim for her lost wages, but you can sue for economic and non-economic damages. So economic damages are lost wages or medical bills, and non-economic damages are the pain and suffering, the humiliation, the embarrassment, the fact that she had nightmares, and that's common, model or not.
Great information, Mari. Thanks so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
you being
much.
here. All right, now let's go to Andrea Robinson from Fox 10 in Phoenix. She has this week's life hacks. So Andrea, what do you have for us?
Hey, Kristen. All right, first up, a summer hack, and this one is for insect bites, which is bound to happen. We're spending so much time outside. Immediately when you get one of those bites, take a stick of deodorant, rub it on the insect bite, and the itch will go away. All right, sticking with that summer theme, life hacks for the beach. Your flip-flops, how often do you come back from being at the pool or the beach and they're hot? You can't put your feet in. So the next time you get there, turn them upside down, face down, and when you're ready to go, they will be cool and not scalding hot, and you're good to go. And lastly, how to beat the heat in the summer, especially if you spent too much time in the sun. Aloe vera ice cubes. Take the aloe vera gel, put it in an ice cube tray, freeze it, and the next time you have a long day in the sun, you'll have an ice cool treat for your skin. Kristen, that's your life hacks for this week. Back to you.
As usual, all great stuff. Thanks, Andrea.
Financial experts say it's a good time to look for apartments thanks to a trend in rental prices. Nationwide rents went up 2.3% in the second quarter of this year. The Wall Street Journal says it's the smallest increase in nearly 8 years. The real estate site Zillow says that in 25 of the country's largest markets, rent went down slightly in the month of May. Rents were flat in cities like Austin, Portland, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. It's unwelcome news for many U.S. landlords who appear to be coming off a record 32 straight quarters of rising rents. The Journal reports that as a result, some landlords are offering valuable incentives. Those include up to 3 months of free rent, free parking, and gift cards with Amazon or Uber. The trend is reportedly due to more supply. The site RealPage predicts developers will add 300,000 rental units this year. Welcome back to Top 30. 5 passengers were ejected from a flight in Indiana over a dispute about airplane mode. Robin Rogers described her interaction with the flight attendant on Instagram, who she says argued with her over whether her phone was switched to airplane mode. When other passengers tried to defend Rogers, they were also removed. It doesn't really make that much difference, if any difference, to an airplane, whether or not your phone is in airplane mode. I've had this argument.
I always wondered about airplane mode. What is airplane mode?
Oh, it just means the phone isn't transmitting. Where the flight attendant might be in trouble is she's caught on Instagram saying, "Would you like to stay too?" This is talking to one of the other passengers who interjected.
Yeah.
"Everybody with attitude is going right off. I have zero tolerance." Because that's not really a criteria for throwing someone off a plane.
Exactly, yeah. At least until now. It's crazy how you can have one situation and completely different accounts, you know? The woman who got kicked off the plane, initially she said the flight attendant stood over her menacingly, you know, kind of like intimidating her, forcing her to turn off this phone. The flight attendant is saying that she asked several times and the woman didn't comply.
People who run airlines must be just terrified of social media.
I know, right?
These didn't used to be stories. And now the moment you upset a passenger, it's everywhere.
There's phone in the back, like, documenting the whole thing. All right, how about this story? How badly do you want to be on summer vacation? A survey by TravelX found Americans spend over 113 hours every single year thinking about getting away. Seeing friends' vacation photos on social media makes them jealous. 36% of Americans admit they put on a show on social media to make their friends think, oh my gosh, their life is so great.
If I were an American, I fear, Kristen, that I would be within that 36%. Let me show you a headline from, this is, you know, the Daily Mail newspaper last summer, which says, how Richard Bacon became the world's biggest show-off. And it's photos there of me in fancy places with famous people. And what
I am not shocked that this exists. So this is true.
It's true.
So this whole study has been lived out with one Richard Bacon. I love it.
And what I'm doing now is showing off a second time by bringing this up on television and allowing the dear viewers of Top 30 to also see me on a holiday in fancy places with famous people.
All right, on that note, Top 30, we'll be right back. In today's hometown stories from Fox 2 Detroit, a little girl from Warren, Michigan is being called a hero for running to get help after her mom had a seizure. Jessa Lavely was on a walk with her 3-year-old daughter Savannah when she suddenly collapsed from a seizure. Savannah bravely retraced her steps and ran home to tell her grandparents who were staying with them that weekend. In the meantime, other people nearby assisted Jessa until help could arrive. Jessa's doing well now, and she says she couldn't be more proud of her daughter. In our second story from Fox 5 DC, Bobby Burwell was driving home one night in Prince George's County, Maryland, when his tire blew out and he had to pull over. Well, Bobby was immediately surrounded by 5 police cars. But what happened next surprised him. He wasn't in trouble. Instead, the police officers wanted to help him change his tire. Bobby was so moved by their helpfulness that he decided to document the whole thing on video.
Look at this. They actually took time out to help me. I need this to go on record.
And in our final story from Fox 35 Orlando, the Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando recently chartered a private plane for a very special purpose, to reunite 59 animals from Puerto Rico with their owners. Many Puerto Ricans needed to relocate to Florida after Hurricane Maria, but they had to leave their beloved pets behind with friends or family. Now, after more than 9 months, they've finally been reunited, and judging by all the wagging tails and kisses, their furry friends couldn't be happier to be back where they belong. Welcome back to Top 30. A lot of people have hundreds of friends on Facebook, and some have way more followers on Twitter. But research shows our brains can only manage about 150 relationships at a time. So all the excess really isn't benefiting us in the way that relationships, you know, are designed to be, like a human connection. I found this really interesting because the research breaks down to extra relationships result in kind of shallow relationships.
By having, say, 400 friends on Facebook you interact with, it actually makes the quality of conversation you have with your proper friends more shallow.
Right.
So that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's what I would say is, I bet you, 1, that is probably true. 2, having shallow conversations has a bad rep. I actually think shallow conversations are some of the most enjoyable conversations that I ever have. I think shallow people are often the most fun people in my life.
I think why this is super relevant now is because social media is bigger than ever. And some are even saying these shallow relationships are going to be the demise of social media.
Yeah, maybe.
People are going to get sick of it.
Yeah, maybe.
I doubt it.
By the way, I have nothing like 150 friends. Who has 150 actual real friends?
I know, that's
It's already an enormous number.
Yeah.
Clothing company LL Bean says it launched the first ever outdoor co-working space that has individual workspaces, conference areas, cycling desks, whatever they are, and Wi-Fi. The company is putting the pop-up office on display in several cities around the country before utilizing it in its main office in Freeport, Maine.
Yeah.
It obviously makes sense. So workers believe, according to a study, there are many benefits to working outside, including lower stress levels, a better mood, and increased overall happiness. And I am sure that is true.
Yeah, more creative, more productive, happier. I am very well aware of my need to be outside. Sometimes I'll be at home and I'll just say, like, I gotta go outside. Like, I'll just have one of those like crazy moments where I have to be outside because my brain opens up. Not to be super hippie about it, but I get so just like peaceful out there.
The science is clear that these fake lights, which we have many in a television studio,
and we
are
love
not.
They make us look good.
That's true. They're good for you in an artificial way. But direct sunlight is obviously better for you, and I think you're right, it makes you more creative as well.
Absolutely. Well, listen to this one. A couple's wedding day, you know, it's a time of happiness. And if anything goes wrong, it's like a nightmare. That's why one woman at a wedding was mad when she saw a parking ticket on the bride and groom's wedding car. And she was so mad, she shared the story with local media. I think this is kind of funny. You know, it ended up, they called the media called the authorities, and the authorities are like, we didn't issue a parking ticket.
Yeah, they think maybe one of the guests did it as a joke.
Prank.
This is a really good way of introducing people to the reality of marriage, which is, you know, the poetry of falling in love and the big party, the wedding day has just ended. You come outside, there's a ticket there. And that is, to me, that's about the pros of the reality of being married and living together day to day. And the reality of being married is you've got to pay some bills and you've got to argue with local councils.
Okay, but can't you wait till after the honeymoon for that reality check?
Give it another fortnight.
Exactly.
So that's fair enough. All right, Top 30, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Top 30. Scientists think they've discovered the source of a particularly irritating household noise. Researchers at the University of Cambridge studied the sound of water dripping from a leaky faucet into a larger pool of water. The team filmed water drops using a high-speed camera. Microphones were placed above and below the water's surface. The idea for the study came in 2016. A Cambridge engineer stayed with a friend who had a bucket catching water from a leaky roof. One sleepless night later, the investigation began. The team thought the sound might be from the impact of the drop or from the water splashing upward after impact. They were wrong. They found an air bubble that forms below the water's surface after the drop hits. The air bubble vibrates about 5,000 times a second, producing the maddening sound. The problem is complex, but the solution is easy. Adding liquid soap to the container catching the water changes the physics, eliminating the sound.
Tim Cook's only form of communication is sign language because he's deaf and blind. So when he needed a cup of water during a flight from Boston to Los Angeles, it was 15-year-old Clara Daly that stepped in to help. The California teen had learned sign language last year, so she used her fingers to sign into the 64-year-old's palm, keeping him company and making conversation during the 5-hour flight. I wanted to help because that's what people are supposed to do, Daly said. He just needed somebody to talk to. The flight attendants and other passengers were in awe over Daly and called her an angel for helping. But for Daly, she felt the chance meeting was more like destiny. Her mom, Jane, said, Clara told me she thought it was meant to be that our original flight was canceled and we were placed on this flight so she could be there to help Tim. He said it was the best flight he's ever taken.
American hospitals are running out of painkillers. The Associated Press reports that healthcare providers nationwide are facing shortages of injectable painkillers made from opioids. That includes fentanyl, morphine, and Dilaudid. The drugs are commonly used to treat patients having surgery, fighting cancer, or suffering traumatic injuries. Some hospitals are rationing what painkillers they have left, giving the drugs only to the patients suffering the most. Other patients are now being given drugs that act slower, take away less pain, and even have more side effects. The substitutions have caused mix-up due to the different drug concentrations. AP reports that several surgery patients were accidentally overdosed. The American Medical Association has declared the drug shortages a public health crisis. It began last year when the FDA found problems at the Pfizer factory in Kansas. The company makes 60% of the nation's opioids. It had to cut production to fix issues. The shortage is currently expected to last into next year. Welcome back to Top 30. More than 100 peacocks have been evicted from a British Columbia neighborhood. The Brightbirds have lived in the Sullivan Heights neighborhood of Surrey for decades, but their incessant squawking and aggressive attacks on cars were finally too much for some residents. Due to an influx of complaints, the city of Surrey unanimously voted this month to capture and relocate the birds and their eggs to the Surrey Animal Resource Centre. Not all residents were happy about the eviction, with some calling it inhumane. But the manager of public safety operations said The nuisance activity is too much for the neighborhood, and we need to take action now to deal with it. Until all the peacocks are caught, the city has imposed a $150 fine to anyone who feeds them and a $450 fine for anyone who tries to keep one.
Who's trying to keep a peacock? Here's what's coming up on our next show. A new drug fights cancer in young patients, and health officials are calling it a breakthrough. Plus, why some of the futuristic technology in the hit movie Black Panther might be closer than you think. And how the visually impaired could be getting some help from self-driving cars. You can also listen to today's biggest stories when you subscribe to the new Top 30 podcast. We'll see you next time here on Top 30.